NDP leader Andrea Horwath saying her party's platform is packed with practical steps to make life more affordable for Ontarians and fix what's broken in healthcare and other systems. Details of the party's platform were unveiled this morning, and key promises include accelerated pharmacare, a tax hike for high-income earners, and hiring tens of thousands of healthcare and education workers. There's also been a promise to raise minimum wage to $20 an hour by 2026 and to cap class sizes in elementary schools. Joining us now for reaction is Sarbjeet Kaur, co-founder of KPW Communications, James Lynn, account director at Hill & Knowlton Strategies, and Jen Hassam, executive director of the Broadband Institute. Thanks to all of you for being here. Jen, let's start with your reaction first. A big focus, obviously, on affordability in this platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me tell you, as a mother of two, I live in a suburban area. In fact, I apologize to viewers who are hearing my kids downstairs. This is the relief we need. Times are tough. And so people are looking at their bottom lines. I know that anyone who's renting right now has this fear of being reno-evicted. And to hear that there's going to be changes that can come that will ensure that people can live safe and securely in where they're renting and where they can afford to right now is so tremendously important. Not to mention the changes on pharmacare, on mental health care, and hiring more nurses, capping class sizes. This is exactly the kind of stuff that we need right now.
Yeah, a lot of big promises. So, Sarbjeet, how does this platform compare to what you're expecting to hear from the Liberals?
I think as we saw with the federal Liberals and the federal NDP platforms, there was a lot of crossover. Some of these ideas, they've been floating around for some time. They're not necessarily new. The feds have already announced through their coalition to expand dental care and pharmacare and work on other things. The $10 a day daycare is already in place. So I think it will come to be a matter of which party can actually deliver on the promises where there is overlap. And while there is a lot in healthcare, definitely that's, the central figure of this platform is the investments in healthcare. The ideas around affordability are actually kind of lacking in details. And as I mentioned, some of the ideas, the feds have kind of stolen their thunder a little bit by already announcing them, while the NDP provincially is committing to fast track them and make them happen a little bit faster. But other than that, not necessarily a lot of new ideas and a little bit scant on details, but definitely a lot there and what people would expect from an NDP platform.
All right. Yeah, delivering on those promises, that's the big question, right? The NDP also pledging today to freeze income taxes on low and middle income households. James, let's bring you in on this. Can Ontario afford to do that?
Well, it'll be interesting to see what they actually do in terms of releasing the COSTA platform. Right now, what we have is a platform full of ideas. And unfortunately, they're not necessarily new ideas. I think a lot of these are recycled ideas from the past, which is not necessarily a bad thing. What's interesting about the NDP is that they're also running on their record, being the official opposition for the last 4 years. So it's not surprising to hear echoes of the previous platform and things they've already committed to throughout the last 4 years.
Jen, do you want to respond to this notion of no new ideas in this platform?
Sure. I mean, that's a surprising critique. I thought that what I was going to hear was that we were first out of the gate, and so these ideas are new. Things like regulating auto insurance, regulating the cost of gas, the rental, absolutely. These are three ideas that I haven't heard before, and that I know that people are thinking about the cost of housing, the cost of their gas, the cost of auto insurance, and these are three ways in which we can really limit the effects of inflation on these things. And that's what we need. We need a government that's ready to do that challenging work to mitigate the effects of this global economic situation on our everyday households.
And Jen, can you talk a little bit about the timing of this? I mean, why release this platform now? We know the budget is coming down on Thursday. Are these big promises costed out?
Absolutely. The NDP costs out their budget each and every year. I've been part of that system before, as do the other political parties. So there's every political party will have a number of economists who will review these figures, and they will also look at some of the academic research and what other jurisdictions have done. and really use their best leveled guesses. So there's no question that the NDP's costed this out. I think that really a budget is a matter of priorities. And so what we're going to see probably in the NDP costed platform when it's fully released is that people who have been profiting off of the pandemic, whether it's the ultra wealthy, because as you heard, they're going to be freezing taxes for the rest of us, or whether it's businesses that have also been unfairly being profited from the pandemic, that they're going to need to pay a little bit extra in order to get us through these tough times. But that's no different than what occurred after World War II. And folks, we've been through a lot. Like, this pandemic has been through a lot. And so we need to think about the kinds of social investments that happened after World War II that brought our economy back and our society back as Canada. And that's where I think governments, and that's the right frame of mind for governments today, handling these really big questions.
Yeah, we have been through a lot. I think the pandemic obviously shaping a lot of these proposed policies. James, want to bring you in on what was proposed today by the NDP in terms of healthcare. A lot of big promises, including hiring more nurses, more PSWs, more monies for hospitals and sick days. You know, all of these issues were sort of pain points for Premier Ford during the pandemic. So what kind of conversations do you think are happening in the Ford camp tonight to address these issues?
Well, I think the Ford campaign has already spoken out on new hires, and they've actually supported that with new builds as well. So new hospitals being built to actually house those new nurses and to create more capacity for the healthcare system. What's interesting, though, is what's sort of the key components of the healthcare promise is more on the pharmacare and dental care. And so those are projects that or programs that the federal Liberals and the federal NDP have sort of, as the other speaker said, taking their thunder. So you're left with not much room for the provincial NDP to really take a leadership role.
Okay, Sarjeet, I want to loop back to something you brought up earlier in the conversation, the Liberal NDP deal from March. Do you think that has any impact on this upcoming provincial election?
Yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons. The con is obviously, as I mentioned, some of these ideas or some of these things are already being delivered, and so they're not necessarily new. But the pro is that, you know, there does tend to be an association with positive things happening on the federal level that the candidates on the ground can point to. That, you know, our friends at the federal level brought in $10 a day daycare, or they brought in the pharmacare, whether that's Liberals or NDP, they both can take advantage of that. So you kind of have the advantage of being able to distance yourself from things that are not your jurisdiction, but also align your things yourself with good examples that are, you know, from the same Liberals family or the same NDP family, so to speak. I do feel the challenge again is where there is overlap, it's going to be a matter of who can actually defeat the Doug Ford government and who can deliver. And while Andrea Horwath has been a leader who consistently polls as having a lot of respect, the effectiveness of actually bringing change as an opposition leader is still always left in question. So that's where the leadership styles and who can actually defeat Doug Ford and deliver on some of these promises will probably come into play. I was also a bit surprised that there wasn't that much specifically for Northern Ontario, where the NDP does have quite a few seats. And I saw a little bit of a nod to Brampton with ending postal code discrimination for auto insurance, which was a very targeted move, probably a very wise move for them to protect the 3 seats that they hold there, where they know, with the resurgence of the Liberal Party, it's going to be a tough battle this time around.
So, Jen, if there is a bit of an overlap, as Sarjeet mentioned there, with some of the proposed policies between the NDP and the Liberals, are you concerned at all about vote splitting?
No, not at all. The NDP was just 10 seats away from being able to defeat the Ford government last time. And so right now, I know that people are working really hard to focus on those few seats that need to switch in this election. So really, it comes down to people's local races. And so if you're a viewer right now watching this, think about who you want to represent you, and not necessarily get into playing this like it was a sports bet, like it was Proline, but think about what you want at the end of the day, who you can trust to fix some of these problems that have occurred during the pandemic.
All right, lots to follow on this story. We thank you for your time, Sarjeet Kaur.
Thank you.
James Lynn and Jen Hassam, thanks so much.